Tonight, day 2 of a major police search in the mid-north to find the body of a murder victim. And restrictions on alcohol purchasing in Port Augusta gets extended.
From our 7 Spencer Golf Studios, your nightly news with Ruby Kamain begins now.
Good evening. Police have continued to search for a 29-year-old murder victim in the mid-north who disappeared around 2 years ago. It's believed Robert Atkins was walked into the scrub and killed. Our reporter Christian Komenos has more from the area.
The search for missing person Robert Atkins continues as police scour scrubland between Orroroo and Peterborough. Robert's body still hasn't been found at the end of day 2, but police gained more ground today using drones to search from above.
They had this specific capability with GPR on drones, which can search from the air and penetrate for quite a great distance underneath. So we were looking for areas of disturbance in some high probability areas.
Police believe Robert was wearing these clothes and shoes at the time of his murder and will likely appear in this area.
On the 14th of November, in which Robert was leaving a suspect's house and he was wearing a high-vis vest.
There has been no major breakthrough today, but police have gathered some positive information in which they aren't allowed to reveal yet.
Things are going very well, and we've got investigators back in Adelaide working, and as I say, generally when we have stories like this, we generally have fresh information come in.
The search is expected to last another 2 days, and police remain hopeful they will find the body of Robert Atkins.
International borders are now open to vaccinated tourists arriving into South Australia. South Australia Police says only fully vaccinated travellers of an ATAGI-approved or recognised vaccine will be allowed to enter the state. Visitors must still have a COVID-19 test prior to arrival, as per federal government requirements. Other existing requirements for travellers remain in force. Meanwhile, the New South Wales government has announced an easing of restrictions for schools to feel more normal. From next week, rapid antigen tests will no longer be required for surveillance testing twice a week. Cohorting will also end. Tests will still be given out over the next 4 weeks, only for parents to use if needed or for peace of mind. Premier Dominic Perrottet also announced from next Monday, high school students and staff will no longer be required to wear masks. Primary schools will follow suit on March 7th to give more time for parents to get their children vaccinated. Temporary restrictions on Port Augusta locals purchasing alcohol from bottle shops have been extended. The aim to curb antisocial behaviour throughout the city, with new data showing the limits may be helping.
The booze ban continues. Port Augusta's restrictions on bottle shops trading before 11 a.m. and limits on purchasing alcohol will go on for another month.
That will continue for another 4 weeks with a couple of areas removed. One is your identification and licence being required, and there is the focus is on cask wine and fortified wine.
As well as removing the mandatory recording of ID from today onwards, restrictions on the purchase of some spirits are also being loosened by the Liquor and Gambling Commissioner.
We have a regular ongoing discussion about this, have had for years and years, considering a range of measures at different times, and he's decided to put this measure in at this time.
The Commissioner says police have reported a decline in antisocial behaviour over the 2 weeks the restrictions have been in place. But locals are eager to see a full report to check if the data validates these prolonged restrictions.
What I would encourage them to do is make sure we're collating the data so we have the evidence of good, bad or the ugly as I call it, so we can have a measuring tool to see where we go into the future.
The Commissioner also says the strongest proof of change from the last fortnight is the single case of intoxication at the Port Augusta Hospital compared to 2 or 3 per day before the restrictions were introduced.
Considering Cooper Pedy and Sir Junior have had these for some time, and to be honest with you, I think they still have issues, so we need to learn from that. But the data is the key to what we get out of this.
Edward McCarroll, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Still to come tonight, Giles and Stewart election candidates reveal their views for environmental sustainability, while calls emerge for both major parties to improve regional bus routes. Welcome back. Tonight we begin our political coverage for the upcoming state election. With renewable energy projects continuing to pop up around the region, environmental sustainability is on the minds of many voters. Here with a breakdown is our reporter Edward McCarroll.
Port Augusta has become a shining example and a political battleground for the topic of environmental sustainability. The Liberal government says in its term it has been reducing emissions and delivering on renewable energy projects to push the state forward.
Our Liberal government energy policy was developed years ago in opposition. We are delivering exactly the policies that we developed in opposition, that we said we would deliver. That's what we're getting on and doing.
The current member for Stewart says his party has helped the region transition into a renewable energy hub, creating jobs and laying the groundwork for further economic growth.
Fits perfectly with the interconnector between South Australia and New South Wales. When that's built, and it has started to be built, we can then have even more renewable energy projects in South Australia because we can sell that electricity into New South Wales, the largest market in the nation.
But independent candidate Jeff Brock is sceptical of the Liberals' proposed renewable energy gold rush, saying locals won't benefit because the region can't currently support it.
We've got so much activity going up with renewable energy projects, we've got all the opportunities out here, but we can't get anybody to come out because they haven't got the housing out here. That's a real issue.
Labor says its previous government laid the foundations on which the current government is now reaping the rewards.
The environment's always been a very big deal for Labor, and I guess we see around the state now all of the wind farms, all of the solar farms, they nearly all started on the Labor.
Hoping for Labor to once again take the reins, the current member for Giles says Labor has environmental sustainability projects in the works.
There's going to be more money for the Friends of the Parks around the state, more private public agreements when it comes to preserving environmental values on properties.
The Greens say neither party puts in enough effort and immediate action must be taken to stop climate change.
Obviously there's always more that can be done and eventually every industry will need to look hard at their practices and the impacts that they are having on the environment.
With so many horses in the race, candidates understand that their policies on our local environment may be what makes or breaks them next month. Tomorrow we take a look at how they will handle our region's education system.
The current member for Narungga is pushing to remove the Port Pirie Hospital from the York and Northern Local Health Network. Fraser Ellis is aiming to put that money to Wallaroo Hospital, saying it would cut back on travel time for many locals.
One hospital for a population of more than 35,000 people. Fraser Ellis says if he gets elected next month, he will be pushing the state government to allocate millions of dollars to the Wallaroo Hospital to improve services and get more beds. Labor has pledged more than $12 million to upgrade the Port Pirie Hospital, but the candidate says he wants the money to go towards the Wallaroo Hospital if his party wins the election.
I'd like to plead with the opposition, and I will be if I'm lucky enough to be re-elected, to not invest that money in Pirie, where they've already got a far better hospital than what we've got here in Wallaroo, shift it further south and ensure that we can bring our Wallaroo health services up a notch, because at the moment they could do with a bit of care.
Port Pirie is resourced at level 4 cancer care services and Wallaroo only level 3. Pirie also has 52 beds, Wallaroo only has 21.
That's a bugbear that everyone seems to have to drive to Pirie for everything when we should have a really wonderful hospital here in Wallaroo.
Independent candidate Diana Walter says there might not be enough money in the budget to improve Wallaroo's hospital to those expectations.
I think if we look at this current local health network and the way that the boards are structured, we need to be mindful that this state is in excruciating debt. We can't afford to have exceptional services at every single location.
Although she does want to see funding committed to hiring more paramedics across the York Peninsula. Christian Komenos, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
South Australia's peak bus industry body is calling for more funding to provide adequate public transport options in the Spencer Gulf. Bus SA says not everyone in regional areas has access to private transport options.
A call to get from A to B easier for everyone in the Spencer Gulf. South Australia's peak industry body asking for more funding for public bus options in Port Pirie and Port Augusta.
There's quite an inequity between the city and the regional areas of South Australia as far as access to public transport.
Asking the state government for an injection of $1.5 million a year, saying it would dramatically improve services for the two cities.
So we've identified that longer hours, improved frequency and more reliability could really benefit those regional cities for a start.
With the lack of regional rail services, the industry body says bus services are important for those who don't have access to a car.
It's quite important for those people that can't drive to have an option. And at the moment, they've got very disjointed options.
In a statement, Transport Minister Corey Wingard says the Liberal Party will look into improving regional bus services, blaming Labor for the lack of investment. Meanwhile, Shadow Regional Development Minister Claire Scriven says the issue will be part of Labor's regional development policy to be announced in the coming weeks. Mark Zita, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Members of the Upper Spencer Gulf's tourism industry gathered for an online roadshow conference last night. The Tourism Industry Council of South Australia is holding regional conferences across the state in the lead up to the state election. Topics that were covered on the night included the state of the industry and the need to improve regional roads for visitor traffic.
A lot of complaints about over time, the quality of the outback tracks, which are important for tourists and also for the pastoral industry and other industries.
Other industry representatives and the RAA were also in attendance. Another roadshow conference was held for the electorate of Flinders this morning. Stay with us after the break. An Eyre Peninsula group calls for community donations for disaster relief. And construction begins on a 32 million litre water tank near Port Lincoln. Hello again. Local communities are set to receive extra funding as part of the disaster recovery plan, looking to rebuild with the help of a $19 million boost. It comes as the Eyre Peninsula Community Foundation calls on residents to help activate its disaster funds.
The effects of wild weather having lasting impacts on communities. However, the state government's disaster recovery funding is aiming to help rebuild these townships.
Ordinarily, state government are able to provide in exceptional circumstances disaster relief of 75% of the cost back to councils. Now, the state government's chosen, very pleasingly, to increase that to 90%.
The district councils of Franklin Harbour, Cleve and Kimber will share in funding. Repairing roads is the major focal point for these towns.
Sowing season is about to begin, and there are school buses too that need to go around the districts and pick up those children who live on farm properties and bring them into the local area schools. So it's critical that this repair work get underway soon.
The Eyre Peninsula Community Foundation is also activating its disaster fund in the wake of Carcoo, Yalana and Cummins floodings.
What we've been looking at is how we could help in relieving a bit of the situation that these families have ended up in. And to do that, of course, we looked at reactivating our disaster fund.
The Eyre Peninsula Disaster Funds were last activated in response to the Sleaford fires in 2012. Now the foundation is calling upon the community for donations.
You can deposit in person at the Community Foundation office at 5 Adelaide Place in Port Lincoln, or you can send a cheque to our post box.
For further details, you can visit the foundation's website. Henry Millick, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Australia Post has announced letter volumes are continuing to decline, with parcel numbers rising. The organisation also announced revenue from parcels and services has gone up 14% on last year to $3.87 billion. Meanwhile, revenue from letters has gone down 1.2% on last year. The Postal Service says pandemic-related network constraints will likely continue into the next financial year. A new 32 million litre concrete water tank is being built at Green Patch near Port Lincoln. SA Water is hoping the new major supply of safe drinking water will sustain the region's network for years to come.
The biggest above-ground water tank in the state, finding its home on the outskirts of Port Lincoln.
It is going to be our largest above-ground water storage across the state, and if you look at it by size and by scale. So it's going to be 6 metres high and 88 metres wide.
The new water tank building upon an already existing water supply.
The additional 32 million litre storage at Green Patch, and that actually brings our overall storage at that site to 50 million litres. So we've already got 3 tanks on that site.
The construction of the water tank, part of a 4-year $1.6 billion investment across the state's water network, with Eyre Peninsula customers set to receive a range of benefits from the new addition.
Additional storage located near our residents provides us storage, particularly at times where there is a peak demand, things such as fire flows and or hot weather days where our customers are using a lot of water.
Also saying the water tank will provide a distinctly different purpose to that of a desalination plant. But both are important for overall water supply.
So the desalination plant is looking at the source of water, whereas the tanks is how do we store water for those peak demand days.
The tank is expected to be supplying water to the Eyre Peninsula network by the end of this year. Henry Millick, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Stay with us after the break. Joshua Mercer will have all the latest prices at petrol pumps across our regions. And we'll have all the weather details with Alex Sykes. Welcome back. There doesn't seem to be an end in sight for the rising cost of petrol. With petrol prices continuing to go up, Broken Hill residents are getting a slight reprieve, but still have the highest in our viewing region. Here's Joshua Mercer with this week's Fuel Watch.
This week has not seen any major jumps in fuel prices. However, there still isn't much joy to be had at the pumps. Though it's the only price to go down in unleaded, residents across the border are once again paying high prices. Broken Hill at the top of the list with $1.84 per litre. Port Augusta hit the $1.80 mark, while Whyalla and Kadina are seeing almost 3 cent and 2 cent price increases respectively. Even with an increase, Adelaide still has the cheapest petrol. Taking a look at diesel now, and Port Lincoln is the place to fill up, seeing a bit of an increase but still having the cheapest in the region. The Silver City seeing another decrease in price. However, it is once again the dearest at $1.81, with Port Augusta and Whyalla next on the list, sitting at $1.80 per litre. Port Pirie is the highest mover, seeing a jump of almost 2 cents. Moving on to autogas now, and prices have largely stayed the same. Port Lincoln and Kadina seeing the only increases. Whyalla is the dearest for autogas at $1.22. The capital city once again the cheapest on this edition of Fuel Watch, sitting at just under $1. Now remember, these are the regional averages and do not reflect one particular outlet. If you see unleaded, diesel or autogas cheaper, then please contact us through our Facebook page.
Time now to take a look at what's happening in the weather. Here's Alex Sykes.
Thanks, Ruby, and good evening, everyone. Well, we needed to slip, slop and slap today with sunny conditions right across the region. At 3 p.m, Port Augusta was 35, Port Lincoln was 24 and Broken Hill was 33 degrees. Looking further out across the region now, Whyalla was 32, Port Pirie was 25, Adelaide was 26, Woodner and Cooper Pedy were both 34 degrees, Kadina and Cleve both reached 30 and Clare was 32. Taking a look at the satellite image now, skies are generally clear across South Australia due to dry winds blowing around an area of high pressure. A marine wind warning remained current for all of South Australia a short time ago. Moving on to tomorrow's weather outlook now, and we'll start with the Gulf waters. Southeasterly winds 10 to 15 knots, increasing to 15 to 20 knots in the late afternoon. Seas 1 to 1.5 metres and south to southwesterly swells 1 to 1.5 metres. Partly cloudy in Port Lincoln tomorrow, where it's set to reach a high of 24 degrees. Cleve will be mostly sunny and 26 degrees. Woodner sunny and is set to top a high of 34. Sunny in Whyalla with 30 degrees. Port Augusta is set to reach 34 and Kadina is set to top 31 degrees. Port Pirie sunny with a high of 34. Clare set to reach a top of 32 and Broken Hill be mostly sunny with a max of 33 degrees. Taking a look further through the week now, it'll be sunny in Port Augusta on Friday with 32 degrees. Mostly sunny in Port Pirie and Broken Hill, both set to reach 33. Port Lincoln partly cloudy and 24. Kadina 30. Whyalla mostly sunny and 29 degrees. Those sunny conditions continue right through to the weekend. Cooper Pedy will reach a high of 38 on Saturday. Sunny in Port Pirie with 34. Port Augusta and Woodner will be mostly sunny, also 34. 32 degrees in Broken Hill. Port Lincoln 25. Partly cloudy in parts on Sunday. Port Augusta, Port Pirie and Woodner all to reach 32. 29 degrees in Whyalla and Kadina. Broken Hill will be mostly sunny and a top of 34. And Cooper Pedy will be sunny and is set to reach 39 degrees. Well, Ruby, welcomed news there with not a drop of rain in sight this week and also on the weekend. And that's all the weather from me for tonight. I'll see you soon with an update. It's back to you.
Great, thanks for that, Alex. And that's the local news this Wednesday evening. Thanks for joining us. I'll have updates later. Until then, enjoy your evening. We'll see you again tomorrow with more local news. Good night.